अस्सलाम वालेकुम व्यूअर्स। आम इंसान और दीन के साथ आपका होस्ट डॉक्टर उस्मान फ़ारूकी आपकी खिदमत में एक मरतबा फिर हाजिर है। आज का प्रोग्राम हमारा एक खुसूसी प्रोग्राम है जिसमें हम आपकी मुलाकात दो मेहमानों से करवाएंगे। ये दोनों मेहमान एक हिंदू धर्म में पैदा हुए, इब्तदाई 25 से 30 साल उसी धर्म में रहे, उसी धर्म को प्रैक्टिस करते रहे, लेकिन इनके ज़हन में बहुत सारे सवालात थे और फिर इन्होंने कुरान की तरफ ये मुतवज्जो हुए और इन्होंने कुरान को समझ कर पढ़ा और अपने तमाम सवालात कुरान के सामने रखे। उसका नतीजा ये निकला कि 2 से 3 साल के अंदर अंदर ये कुरान से न सिर्फ मुतासिर हुए बल्कि अपनी पैदाइशी ट्रेडिशन को छोड़कर इस्लाम में दाखिल हो गए। ये बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग कपल है, इनकी कहानी बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग है, बहुत इंस्पिरेशनल है और सबसे बड़ी बात यह कि इन्होंने जिस तरह से कुरान को देखा है उस तरह हम नहीं देख पाते, क्योंकि ज़ाहिर है हम एक इस्लामिक घराने में पैदा हुए हैं, हम एक कुरान का तारुफ लेके पैदा हुए हैं और इन्होंने कुरान को बिल्कुल एक बगैर किसी बायस के पढ़ा है। यहाँ पे एक बात मैं आपको बता दूं कि आज के प्रोग्राम में हम उनके चेहरे नहीं दिखाएंगे। उसकी वजह यह है कि हम नहीं चाहते कि उनकी फैमिली के लिए दिल आज़ारी का कोई भी बात बायस बने। तो आइए मिलते हैं इस इंटरेस्टिंग कपल से और फिर उसके बाद दोबारा हाजिर होते हैं। अस्सलाम वालेकुम मैं भाई, मेरा आपसे बस ये सवाल है कि आप अपनी हमें एक कहानी सुनाए ज़िंदगी के, किस दीनी रवायत में आप पैदा हुए, व्हाट रिलीजन यू वर फॉलोइंग और कैसे तब्दीली आई, क्या आपका सफ़र रहा एंड कुरान तक कैसे पहुँचे। तो अपने अल्फाज में जो भी आपकी कहानी है, में भी आप भाई अगर पहले स्टार्ट।
Sure. So my journey started, Usman. So I'm from a Hindu Brahmin family, relatively devout. And as you can understand, within the Hindu caste system, there's hierarchy, and the Brahmin caste is, towards the top of that hierarchy. So there was already elements of I'm going to say not necessarily hatred, but dislike towards Islam. So even growing up, we couldn't have friends that were Muslim. That was something that we'd be asked, who based on the name, oh, so the Muslim, don't be friends with them, don't trust them, and so on. So the journey was one of just by chance. I believe that I had an open mind. I didn't have that inward hate towards any faith for that matter. Growing up, I'd go past the Gurudwara and I'd still appreciate, their faith, or going past a temple or masjid and so on. How I got introduced to Islam was one day, just flicking the TV, and I came across Peace TV. And Dr. Zakir Naik was giving a talk on comparative religion. I just thought, let me listen, because the topic of talk was on Hinduism. And he was talking about the Kalki avatar, which in Hinduism they're waiting as something that should be coming. And he touched on, and I remember vividly, he touched on the names of the parents of Kalki avatar. And he touched on the names of Prophet Muhammad's parents and how in Arabic it translates to the same meaning in that it does in Sanskrit. And that got me thinking that, maybe there is a belief that, we're waiting on something to come within a given part of the world. We expect them to be Hindu, or we expect them to be Jewish, or we expect them to be Muslim. But maybe there's a possibility that what we're waiting for has already come and gone in the form of Prophet Muhammad. So I got interested from that point, and I started reading other parts of the Quran. Even in university, I had this inclination of spending my evenings reading the Quran rather than going out to the clubs, to bars, and so on. So I was more inclined towards that. But what held me back was family, knowing that my parents, even when I would have these discussions, they would say, "Have you been brainwashed?" that was the. So even to this date, I still get some of those remarks. So it always put me off, and it delayed my willingness to take that step. I know in my heart what I believed, and in my heart I knew I was Muslim. There was no question about it. But my actions, I couldn't carry out, praying and fasting and so on. So Fast forward to 2 years ago, where I joined a company where I was working with yourself. And yes, I remember coming day before Ramadan and you were going to pray Maghrib. And I asked if I could join. I joined. And then what's holding you back? We talked about family. And then from that point, it's like, look, you must take Shahada because the relationship you have is between you and God. And it's not one that you need to disclose to people. And that really helped. That made me take that first step. And ever since, praying in secret, trying to pray the 5 daily prayers in complete secret. I remember going home that day and it was going to be Fajr, woke up, but at the time, nobody knew in the house. So all the rooms were occupied because we lived as a big family, parents, and I had to pray in the hallway, being conscious that my dad could wake up any minute to go to the bathroom, and he did. But luckily, I was behind a banister where there was towels. So I went into sujood at that point, hidden behind towels. So yeah, ever since it's been challenging, but we found a way to make it work. I don't know if that was anything.
Very, very interesting. I'll come back to you. But Bhabhi, आपकी क्या स्टोरी थी? कैसे आपकी जो बचपन था या जब आप बड़ी हो रही थी, तो how were you seeing the religion and how did it change for you?
So to start off with, जब मैं छोटी थी, we used to go to temples. Every temples. My dad is in love with going to temples, and we used to always join them. So जब मुझे पता चला, I used to speak to my mom, like, what is God? Who is God? वो है क्या? किसे दिखाई देते हैं? किसे नहीं दिखाई देते? She used to always say, you have to be a very pious soul to see him. And for me, it always used to be like a form of a human being. That's what I used to see him, just like how you see in the temple. And I used to always ask her, then, what's the point of us? Because if you have to be pious, you have to meditate. Just like in Hinduism, you have to meditate for years and years to see God. So it didn't really felt appealing to me. I said, it doesn't make any sense. We can't argue with her by knowing what would come back to us. But there was this thing that the answer never satisfied me. And there was always, I was finding something. I didn't knew मैं क्या ढूंढ रही थी, but there was something. Never knew where I was going, कहाँ जा रही थी, what I am looking for. Yes, I knew I wanted to see God. How I didn't know. So जब मेरी शादी हुई, when I came to another country, speaking to my husband, we used to talk about religion. We used to even sometimes argue on certain things because still I didn't know what was right, what was wrong. So certain things I used to ask again, go to parents, and why is this happening? Certain rituals in Hinduism, and I used to ask them, "Ke ye kyun hota?" And all they used to say is because our forefathers did it. And that's what my then husband used to say, that sometimes that's what they say it to our forefathers, and that's what written in the Quran. I didn't read the Quran at that time. When I hold the book, when I was reading through, I came to the exact same verse, that just because your forefathers did it, that's why we do it. Still today, there are some rituals, I have no idea why they do it. I have no idea what's the reason behind it. What's the purpose? What's the benefit? What good we going to get? Nothing. Still, I was looking. Still, as sometimes I used to even listen to your podcast when my husband used to come and pick me up around 9:45. That's when he used to podcast at night. And we used to talk about religion and all of that. And at one point, he was praying Fajr, I remember. And I woke up in the middle of my sleep and I was just looking at him. There was this thing that, why don't you call me for prayer? I don't know why did that come. And I looked at him. He finished his 2 rakat. He looked at me and he called me, why don't you join me? And that was it. Since that day, we're still hiding, we're still praying. And we haven't missed any prayers. We still try and make it up if we miss it. When we go even back India, the days we miss it, we always make it up. And since then, our journey is still going on, believing that just one God, that there's no form. And I found him finally, that there's no form. The form I was looking for is not what actually exists, because there's no form.
Very interesting, very inspirational. मैं अब जरा कुरान में आना चाहता हूँ। भाई आप आते रहे, हमारा वो जो एक कुरान की स्टडी सर्कल चलता है उसमें भी आप आते रहे, 1.5-2 साल आपने पूरा कुरान ख़त्म किया, आप भी आती रही बहन उसमें। तो मैं कुरान पे फोकस करना चाहता हूँ कि जब आपने कुरान को पढ़ा तो ज़ाहिर है आपका कुरान से उस तरह का इंट्रोडक्शन नहीं था जिस तरह का हम मुसलमानों का होता है। बचपन से बताया जाता है कि खुदा की किताब है, खुदा की किताब है। आपने तो उसको बिल्कुल एक अनबायस्ड व्यू से पढ़ा। तो कुरान की किन चीज़ों ने आपको बहुत मुतासिर किया, जो आपको बहुत दिल पे लगी जाके, और जिन चीज़ों की वजह से आपको लगा कि ये सही है, यही सही रास्ता है जो हम ढूंढ रहे थे, वो कुरान की किन बातों ने आपको मुतासिर किया?
So it's a good question, Usman. I don't know where to start because there's so many things, but if I take it back to the background that we come from, being a science background, and you see the miracles of science in the book, from embryology and how, the individual cycles, this is something that you think, it's no way the Prophet Muhammad would have been able to know this without the technology we have today. Talking about how mountains are used as hooks for the earth, which gives it support. Talking about the Earth's orbit around the sun. All of these things where you realize that it's not possible that any human. So we have that appreciation that this book is extraordinary. Without that point, I believe it to be the divine word was one thing, but it was evident that this book is extraordinary. And then something else that came to me was the story of the Pharaoh and how his body, Allah says in the Quran that his body is preserved for all of mankind as proof. And then I believe I remember seeing on a documentary about Dr. Maurice Bucaille, who was a French archaeologist who found a body, and he was trying to identify why is this body, it looks relatively fresh. And then I believe somebody who worked with him who was Muslim said that, this is in the Quran, and they did all the necessary tests and they found that this body is in fact very old and there's evidence of drowning. So that for me, similar to this archaeologist who then accepted Islam, so in my heart it was, yes, I can keep delaying, but the proof is, I feel the Quran talks to people at the level that you might be searching. So if we're looking at it from a scientific, I feel it gives you that. And even to people who may not have a scientific background, I believe that the Quran talks to each individual as per their not necessarily IQ, but to their sort of intelligence level or whatever they feel comfortable with. So it's not just a book for scientists or, people who are very educated. There's enough there for.
Beautifully. I think you said a couple of things very well. One, Quran talks to you at your level, whatever level you are. This shows that it's an extraordinary book and it's a divine book, and fantastic. भाभी आपकी तरफ मैं आता हूँ. इन भाई को तो साइंटिफिक फैक्ट्स ने और इन चीज़ों ने बड़ा मुतासिर किया. आपने कैसा पाया कुरान?
For me, as my husband just said, and I believe 100% that you can either be simple and still able to know that this is the right book. It teaches you, if you're simple, it will teach you very simple. If you're looking for something very complex inside the book, you will still find the answer. For me, even by looking at the words, I am satisfied by knowing that, yes, he exists. For me, I did my research and all of that, going back to Hinduism, book, Vedas, Upanishads, all the shlok as well, just to try and translate what it means. It all means that there's one God and there's no form. And so coming back to Quran again, I read it every day. And as I say, from simple examples to complex, the more you dive in deep, there is much more to learn. And if you just want one answer, simple answer, you still get there. So for me, I think it's always amazing when you try and look the way you want to look. Whether it's very simple, you still get the answer. Whether it's complex, you still get.
भाभी आपने एक बात कही थी कि आपके लिए बचपन से आपको खुदा का जो तसव्वुर था कि गॉड का तसव्वुर क्या है, फॉर्म क्या है, ये क्वेश्चन था और ये आपको सेटिस्फैक्टरी आंसर कुरान में मिला कि असल में उस खुदा का कोई फॉर्म, कोई तसव्वुर कर ही नहीं जा सकते इस दुनिया में। वो बालातर है, वो अकबर है, बड़ा है तसव्वुर से। तो आपको ये बड़ा सेटिस्फाइंग आंसर लगा। इसके अलावा कोई ऐसे आपके सवालात थे दीन के मामले में जिनका जवाब आपको कुरान से मिला और आपको बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग जवाब लगा और आपने उसको अपनाया? पेरेंट्स के बारे में हो सकता है, रिश्तेदारों के बारे में, किसी और चीज के बारे में।
So the first thing that felt, as I said, the rituals that we follow in Hinduism or any other religion, just because your forefathers did that, you're doing that without knowing why you're doing that. So that really felt like, then this has to be right, because even myself, my parents don't know, then how can this something be right? And then, yes, there is more examples and I can just talk more and more on this, but that was specific reason that felt and that diverted me to read more about the Quran. And there are scientific, of course, there are scientific examples if you want to go to that, towards that side, but
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग। ये पॉइंट आपका मुझे बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग लगा कि आपको हमेशा से ये जवाब मिलता था घर से कि हमारे बड़े भी यही दीन फॉलो करते आए हैं तो यही करें। और ये कोई, जब आपने कुरान को पढ़ा तो कुरान ने बताया कि ये लोग जो अपने दीन को क्वेश्चन नहीं करना चाहते, वो एक ही आर्ग्यूमेंट देते हैं कि हमारे बड़े फॉलो करते हैं इसलिए कर रहे हैं। ये कोई अकली दलील नहीं है, अकल से ढूंढो आंसर। और इसने आपको बड़ा मुतासिर किया एंड देन इट कन्विंस्ड यू टू एक्चुअली रियली क्वेश्चन योर रिलीजन, and that's how you turn toward it. That's very interesting, very good. आपका भाई कोई इस बारे में ऐसी चीज कुरान की खास तौर पे जो आप हाईलाइट करना चाहें हमारी ऑडियंस के लिए जिससे आपको बड़ा मुतासिर किया?
So similar to my wife, Usman, that verse in the Quran that talks about, the answer coming from people who have been following certain ways that our forefathers did it. So I was having this conversation with my mother at the time after I took Shahada, and then my mother said the same thing, I've been doing this because our forefathers do it. That's it. And then I thought, okay, we're not getting anywhere with this conversation. So then went into the room, watched some TV, and then I was flicking through and I came through the Islam channel. Then it was just going through Quran recitation. And my mom comes in. And the verse that's playing at that very moment that she came in was the verse where Allah says in the Quran that people will say that our forefathers did this. So I paused it. At that very moment I paused it and I said, look, Mom, this is not by chance that I've come here, put on YouTube. Yeah. This is just, you could say, by chance, but it's not by chance in the grand scheme of things. And I thought, Mom, this is... And we still talk about it to this day, to the point that I feel that even in my mother's heart, when we talk, she'll say, like, I've stopped doing idol worshipping. That extra step, only God knows, but that extra step, whether she takes it or not, but in her heart, she's put idol worship on the side. So she's conscious of.
And I think it's also a blessing because now they know, they still let us pray.
Yes.
I still remember, like, even going shopping, if she's in the car and I'm praying, she will not stop me.
Very nice.
So I feel it's still a blessing staying with in-laws. It's, in a way.
That was the biggest worry.
Yes.
And to the point where every Friday when I was trying to go to Jummah, my mom, as any mother knows, where are you going every Friday at the same time? And I just smiled and she
knows, yeah.
And then my dad, a few weeks later, like every Friday, and that was the biggest worry because every child, especially Southeast, probably scared of their father in some way, shape or form. So, he clicked as well. But to the point where I think he knew in his heart that the way I was talking, and he kind of knew that, look, that this is, but he's accepted it to that extent where in the house now, he's walked in once when I was praying and he just left straight away. So it's things have, Allah has made it easier.
And I would say that, yes, he has made it easier, because if my parents find out, it would be a totally different thing. Totally different, because they're in different.
And it's the cultural element to it.
And I think it's the cultural pressure as well. So I feel like it's a blessing even to have in-laws like this, where they let us pray.
Yeah, because culturally there is that India, Pakistan, the impression that Hindus, or even Sikhs for that matter, because I bracket it, they're a similar thought process when it comes to how they view Muslims. And it's culturally, it's what they see of Pakistani Muslims or some of these terrorist attacks that they see. And unfortunately, that's...
Because even today, till this day, I remember a story my mother used to say that where the Kaaba is, there used to be idols, and she used to say there used to be a shivling, like Shiv, idol Shiv. And she just said that, a Muslim just knocked it out of the Kaaba. It's still underneath there. But when I found the story, like I was then searching, whenever questions like this come, I used to find curiosity comes out. So then the story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam came to me. And then the reason why he took the idols away. But then again, it's hard for explain it to my parents because they didn't understand. But there's always a reason why it happened, rather than just saying, because our forefathers did it.
Yeah. Look, thank you very much. Very, very interesting. Just one last question to both of you. What advice you want to give to your viewers?
So a message for the viewers, I'm assuming the majority of the listeners are people who have been born into Islam through, having parents. Firstly, appreciating how fortunate you are. And the reason I say this, and it's something that comes to me a lot, is if my parents were to die in the current state, I don't know what would happen to them. And that hurts me a lot, as it would do for any child. So firstly, appreciate how fortunate you are. That you have parents, and the ties that you have, that God has given us, even, for example, like I said, my parents, we all live together. They follow another religion, so do I. My father does idol worship. My mother has kind of put it to the side. But if they said to me, take me to this mandir or take me to there, I would still feel my obligation to them. Whether I join them or not, that's another thing, which I wouldn't. But, they have idols in the house, which we let them in a given space where they can do what it is that they wish to do, whether it's right or wrong. We know it's not right, but, I try and fulfill sort of the obligation that I have towards my parents, regardless of whether they're Muslim or not. So I just want to, bring it back home to the viewers that, you have parents who are Muslim, and you have the opportunity to carry out your faith freely, to read the Quran openly, to have Quran lessons with their blessings. So by all means, I think it's quite important that they should read the Quran, understand the Quran, because it has all the solutions to life. It talks about, for example, when people go through divorces, how things should be carried out. Even in the sense of, like, not will writing as such, but if somebody was to pass away, how to share the wealth. And that's something that I'm trying to at some point implement, so that if something does happen to me, my wife, the kids have it based on the word of Allah, and we know that for them will be best. So I think it's important that if they're able to read the Quran, they should, because they have the opportunity to. And if they're not doing it, then it's purely choice rather than some of the difficulties that we have, where I can't do lessons openly and so on. So I think utilize the blessing that you have. Don't take it for granted. Is the message.
Thank you. Abid?
Yes, so I'd agree to my husband in the circumstances that we are. The way our life has changed by knowing very little from the Quran. We don't even know much Arabic. We still pray the same dua in 5 daily prayers, but we don't stop because we can see how it's changing, not just us, even our kids. They even ask. My son has now joined to pray. He prays with me, or sometimes with my husband as well. So sometimes we take things for granted. Maybe if it's very little, we do take it for very granted. And when you realize that, your hope comes back. And when it comes back, you will see that difference in whatever struggle you're going through. You will see that change because He has promised you just to turn to Him and He will come back running to you. So don't leave His hand. You all know more than what we know. We want to do so much, but we still try and do what's best we can in our situation. But sometimes when we have so much, we don't appreciate. But I think it's best to do it now than we wait for, we don't know, next second, next hour. When we don't know, why do we wait for something we have been blessed for? So I hope this helps anybody. And yes, thank you.
Very, very inspirational and absolutely right. We don't have time to wait for. We don't know whether we'll be alive next minute or not. We should make most of it. And you said very rightly, both of you said that, it's we are blessed, we are fortunate that we have this opportunity to read it, to understand it, and to implement it in our lives. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So जी viewers, आपने आज भाई और भाभी से सुना कि कैसे उन्होंने कुरान का मुताला किया और वो कैसे कुरान से मुतासिर हुए और उन्होंने अपना जो सीधा रास्ता है वो कुरान से ढूंढा। मुझे उम्मीद है कि आपको ये प्रोग्राम पसंद आएगा और मुझे उम्मीद है कि इस प्रोग्राम से हमें ये गाइडेंस भी मिलेगी कि कोई भी शख्स जब खुले जहन के साथ कुरान को पढ़ता है और अपने तमाम दीनी सवालात कुरान के सामने रखता है तो कुरान उसको यकीनन हिदायत भी देता है और उसको मुतासिर भी करता है। बहुत शुक्रिया।